For those who don't know, I am more from HMS Psyche, and we've been doing a series of virtual presentations like this for your entertainment and enjoyment. And in this particular case, we've got Bosun's calls with our resident Bosun, Hovey. And he's going to take us through some of the background history and how not to call it a whistle, because I've been already corrected once on that. And then he'll answer any questions. So just logistically, I ask you hold your questions to the end, or you type them in the chat, and then we'll read them out. And hopefully we can have an interesting presentation here. So I'm going to hand it over to Glendon and let him do his thing. There you go.
Oh, holy crap. Hi, everybody. How are you tonight? Everybody's good? Okay, as Ryan said, and as you probably know already, tonight's presentation is going to be about the Bosun's call. Apparently, back in history, all whistles were referred to as calls. It's only the Bosun's call that has hung on to it from time immemorial, actually from about 1248 AD. It can be reliably dated to that use at that time. And even back into Greek times, its predecessor was a flute, if you can believe it or not, that used to keep the rhythm on the triremes going and going. It wasn't always this big drum that you see on pirate movies and what have you. Now, I want to make sure that you know, because I still screw it up a little bit. The instrument itself is the call. The music is the pipe. Orders are also called pipes aboard naval ships. They're not orders, they're not directions, they're pipes. If we can keep that straight, if I can keep it straight, things will be good. So again, the call is the instrument, this thing here, and the pipe is the music or the order it conveys. As I mentioned earlier, the use of the Bosun's call of English ships can be traced back with certainty to the days of the Crusades, 1248. It was worn as in English ships as an honored badge of office, kind of like a policeman's truncheon, if I may add. And it has always been used for passing orders. Thereafter, since it was used then, this is all confusing, but it's always been the Bosun's call from then. The general shape of the instrument has remained more or less the same. This is a British one used by the Canadian Navy pre-unification. It looks just a little different in that these days you see little rings here and there. They had rings before, they have rings now. It doesn't really affect it except to make it look a little prettier and perhaps help you hold it.
Can you hold it up a bit closer to your face, a bit higher? There we go. We couldn't see it, it was below the screen.
Thank you. Sorry. How's that? Oh, and here's one that you can blow people's minds with it, which you want, if you want to. This particular instrument is called a non-diaphragm aerophone. Yeah, it actually has a name. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through the parts of it. And keeping with Royal Navy tradition, the Americans have different names for it, but we'll keep with our own. There is the gun. That's this part right here. At the end of the gun, a mouthpiece. At the other end, a hole. Next part is called, oddly enough, the keel. And that basically just gives you something to grab onto when you're holding it, and it reinforces the gun. If you want another joke, what is the smallest keel on a ship? This one. So you can be, smarty pants when we're all around the fire, if we ever get to do that again. Next part is the shackle. This part right here. This over here is called the buoy, or buoy, depending on where you're from. I call it a buoy. And at the top of the buoy is another hole. That's all you need to know about the parts. It's pretty easy stuff. The way it works, you blow air in this end, it skips over the top of the hole and makes a noise. Air circulates in there. There's no P in this one, and it's not cut out like a flute exactly, but you can see the principle is the same. There's air passing, except this is directed, so you don't have to change your embouchure all the time. How's that? Yeah, so far? Okay, now, before we get into any kind of depth, I want to go over training environments. If anybody out there has heard me honking on this thing before, you know that it's loud and piercing. Having said that, all training for this kind of thing should take place in the most open space you can find. A little room like this will blow my ears out if I start honking on this thing. The main deck of a ship out on Lake Ontario is usually pretty good. The instructor who's giving the lesson should stand at least, it's a social distancing tool too, at least 10 feet or 3 meters away from the student. Especially if there's a cluster of students all around and you get these things all blowing at the high note, you'll hear a ringing at the end of the night. The training period should last no longer than 10 minutes at a time. So 10 minutes blowing and training, getting the tones right, and then maybe 10 minutes critiquing and saying, well, am I holding it the right way? Am I blowing the right way? Am I making my warbles or trills the right way? Anything like that. Good piping is achieved by A, good posture, good breathing, and a good sense of timing. A lot of these orders are based on times, and it's just the usual beats that we all use for everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 8. That's the longest call you'll ever make, 8, for a single note. Now, I'll mention this again. We are doing the Royal Navy, i.e. Canadian Navy, method of doing it. So you're holding it like this with the hole on the buoy upright and resting right here on the chubby part of your thumb. The Americans hold it like this, which the Americans hold it like this. That's all I can say about it. And they play it just as well. So you hold it like this. The buoy lies in the hollow of the right hand, bumped up against this fleshy pad, and the thumb is at the back of the keel, not in through the shackle, but back here. It presses upward against it, but it's not wedged in, and the index finger is crooked over the top of the gun, right here. That's what's holding it in place, and sometimes those little rings that are on other models give you a place to do it. The other 3 create the notes. And counterintuitively, when you choke down, the note goes up. When you release, the note goes down. That's because you're creating a smaller sound chamber for that noise to rattle around in. So there you have the low note and the high note. The problem is you won't know that you've hit that note until you try to blow it. Always a problem, especially when there's a million people looking and you go. Like I said, it's high, low. Now, when you're blowing high, you have to expel a little more air into the column. I'm not going to do it. And you squeeze it out in a tight, if that makes sense, steady stream. So you're going more or less like this. Whereas when you're doing the low note, it's just kind of like that. Some calls require a sharp finish, so it doesn't just trail off like, it's, you do that by sticking your tongue in the hole. So it's short and sharp. some of these things do sound similar. Oftentimes it's just the end that'll make the difference between veering or rowing or standing still. Now there's other things as well, notes that you make, types of notes. One is the trill, and that is made by blowing into the whistle at the same time as you roll your R's. Does anybody here have trouble rolling their R's? Can they go like that? No? If you do have trouble with it, practice by saying Dracula, Dracula. You'll get it. But if you say the Count, it won't work. The other one is the warble. Now, the warble, there's a few different ways to do it. One is by blowing and moving your tongue back and forth across your mouth like this, or slapping it forward like this. The one that I like is this. Sounds better when you got a full blow. That's the warble and the trill earlier on. Now, does anybody have any questions before we go on to the calls themselves? Not the calls. See, I made the mistake myself. The pipes. We're only going to cover 4, but in a supplementary submission that I have, we're going to cover piping the side as well, because there's a whole lot more to it than just a lot more to it. So any questions? Yes, no? Nope. Okay.
They're all on mute until the end anyways.
Okay.
So here's a question for you.
Yes.
I'm in the chat. Are the calls always made of steel?
No. This one here is steel and it's nickel plated. Some of them are made out of brass and copper. Modern ones are steel and they're either plated with this, or they're black, or they're gold covered, or the reproductions are made out of brass and copper. The one that I carry aboard Psyche, brass and copper. Because back in the day, it would be brass and copper and then plated over with nickel probably. Now, I'm going to read and show you the calls, because as I told Ryan earlier, there's an infant on the other side of that wall, and I don't really care to wake up infants for our new neighbors. Okay, the ones we're going to cover today are the general call, the still, the hail, and the carry on. The general call itself, I'll describe it to you, and this will be in some of the documents as well. Start low and work up to the highest note and then break it off. So stick the tongue, and then it takes a second, then you start again like this, down low, right up high, 2 seconds, back down, short stop. You've heard it before. You ever whistle at a girl? That's the sound of the carry on. That's more or less it. Easy peasy. Except when you try to do it and there's people watching. The reason for the pipe, it will require thereafter. So, and that's known as passing the pipe, since pipes are orders, right? This pipe is not followed by the carry on. So you do the general call, all hands report to the quarterdeck, all hands go to the heads, all hands, whatever you want to do. And then that's it. They're going there. That's the end of the order. I hope that's clear. If it's not, write down your questions. The still is blown high and hard for about 8 seconds. It takes a little bit of wind to do that. You can usually get away with 5 seconds because people will know that you have bronchitis or some other disease and you can't blow. Fingers are closed over the hole and you blow as hard as you can for 8 seconds. The note must be the highest you can get, but don't overblow, because instead of a whistling noise, you'll just get like that and no one will know what you're doing. The reason for the pipe, the still is used to call all hands to attention as a matter of respect, to order silence, to give instructions, or around accident scenes, potential accident scenes, to get everybody's attention and stop them doing what they're doing immediately. If you're in a position to do so as a member of the crew receiving the pipe, you put your stuff down and come to attention and wait for an order. It's that simple. If you can't put your stuff down, or you're in the middle of something that is reasonably dangerous, finish it up as much as you can and put it down. Let's see. After that, you receive the orders or the things are remedied. Then you go with the carry-on, which we'll come to at the end of this. Now, there are 4 occasions where the still might be used. I went over some of them, but at colors and evening colors, before the ensign is hoisted and lowered. That's to get everybody to come to attention, as I mentioned. And it is also can be used as a mark of respect for the arrival or departure of any persons that are nice, but they don't deserve a pipe beside or something like that. Say it's your mom or your dad, or a girl you like, or something like that. But not entitled to be piped over the side. And also when it's necessary to give detailed instructions. The hail. It's an informal call, and it's generally used to get someone specific their attention. Say the coxswain in a boat, or that guy over there, or the officer of the day, which is something we don't usually have to contend with. And what it is 5 sharp, high puffs. Just like that. And sometimes you'd have to go by, hey, you over there, or leading seaman Wand, hey, come over here. That kind of thing. Although I would never do that to you, Bill. I'd come over and tap you on the shoulder. Okay. Then finally, there's the carry-on. That's the end of the giving the orders. Blow the high note for 1 second, and drop to the low note for 1 second, and then finish abruptly. Don't let it trail away like it's hit the notes, down, stick your tongue in the hole. Short, sharp note. Reason for it, it's used in conjunction with the still and may follow a verbal order. So just a regular pipe, verbal order, and then the carry on. So you wouldn't be directing people to go somewhere or to complete a certain task. You're giving them information instead of go here, go there, do this, do that. You see the difference? What I'm talking about, really? Okay. Now, you might not know it, but you can also tune these things. It can be tuned by scraping away the edge of the hole on the windward side. So right there. Good luck with that. Unless you're a metalsmith, I wouldn't try it. What I do though, is I'll take a clump of beeswax and alter the shape of the hole that way. These steel ones here, the other way you can do it is, of course, with a soft copper or brass one, is tap this down, the end of the gun, where the hole is. And that will pinch it down a little more and redirect the wind over the hole in the bowl. But I wouldn't do it. Most of these are pretty well made, especially if you get an Acme. They're a little more expensive, but they're worth the money. And they blow a pretty good note. It's probably easier for you to learn how to adjust to the call than the call to adjust to your lips. One other thing, the final thing, you should probably clean it now and then, because, you know, food, other people, mud, things like that. It will not play properly if it's not gesundheit, if it's not clean. You can do it with warm soapy water. I would not do it with alcohol, for the simple fact that you're going to have the alcohol and then you're going to put it in your mouth. After a while, you're going to start to get chapped right there. And a Q-tip stuck inside there. If it needs soaking, warm soapy water. This one had something like a ton of crud in it, stuck in the bowl. And just soapy water in the sink, come back after a tea, it's ready to go. And always clean between users. If you have to share, clean it. Rather you didn't share it at all. Okay, as I said, I'll be posting this in our files group, okay. Piping 101, and I'll also be doing something with regards to piping the side. In the modern situation, it's just somebody walking up the gangway. They stop, salute, blow the pipe, all that kind of stuff. But back in our reenactment days, it used to depend on how much way was on the boat when the first oar came to rest beside the ship, and how long it took the old man to come up the accommodation ladder to get onto the main deck and have his carcass pulled over top of the gunwale. That all came into play. So I'm going to treat that as a different subject altogether. But you all know what it sounds like anyway. So I think we're ready for some questions.
All right, just one question in the chat, and then I'll open it up for general discussion. Which companies sell period-appropriate Bos'un calls?
I believe you can get the period-appropriate ones. That is the brass and the copper ones. Is that what you're talking about?
Whichever one is period-appropriate.
Okay. You can use both, actually. Like I said, the shape hasn't changed very much. It's still this. And if you look at ones that weren't made specifically, because these were private purchase items, they tend to all look like this. Acme whistles in Barrie sells a really good one. Regulation size, if there was a regulation. And they're well made, and I think they'd probably last forever. They're about 32 bucks. You can get other soft ones, which I really wouldn't recommend. From Townsend's, Godwin, I think, sells them. Almost any reenactment merchant will have these available. Some of them, well, most of them are this big. Some of them are half size. Now, there were smaller ones too, but they were usually made out of clay, and they date back to way back when in the Mediterranean. So not really of our period. With this steel one, you're not going to go wrong because it looks like a silver one, and silver ones were very common. Or you can go for the brass and copper. Either one. And the cost is about the same, actually, for a good one.
Great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow participants to unmute themselves. If you have a question, unmute yourself and fire away.
Glendon.
Yes.
This is Girth.
Hi, Girth.
Was it only, hello, great presentation. Really learned a lot more about the call and the pipes. Was it only the bosun himself that had the pipe, or would the bosun's mates also have them, considering how big a ship or frigate could be?
Yeah. As you brought up how big a ship or a frigate or anything else could be, the mates would have them too.
Okay. And was there a special arrangement of the chain used to keeping the call attached to the person, or was it just a regular chain? Or
generally, and don't forget, there's no real uniformity at this point. The bosun, capital B, would have it on a chain. You've seen me with the chain with the heart on it, and I'm sure you've seen illustrations of it as well. But if you're on a smaller vessel, you would make one out of cord as you needed them, and if they wore out, you replaced them, just to make a lanyard to go around your neck, but not one with a sliding Turk's head on it, because you could kill yourself. Generally, I believe that the bosun's mates would all be on a lanyard, not a chain.
thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Come on, Bill, you got a question.
Well, Glendon will be posting a PDF with, what do you call it, the diagrams with the little notes on it. I've seen them before. They're dots and lines, and it's basically drawing the sound of the call or the pipe. So we'll have that available to you on our website very soon. And just in case I don't get a chance to say it, this is recorded, so you can grab it on our YouTube channel after this.
No more questions. I've
Last
explained
chance for
everything.
questions. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
I look forward to the second episode of this.
Oh, well, I hope it's better than this episode. Because I would like to be able to at least play or play recordings for you. So if you have an ear for it, it's better than me trying to explain it or you're reading it out of a book. It's better. It's like learning to play by ear. You can learn how to read the music, but not enough to hurt you playing by ear, if you know what I mean.
Well, my suggestion would be at a future School of the Sailor or reenactment event where we have 10 minutes of free time, it would be great to have a bosun's call training session. So for all the people who have a bosun's call, to bring them to learn. Yeah, no, that's okay. We're all in artillery. We can't hear you anyways.
It's that social distancing, right?
6 meters away, not 6 feet.
Well, I have a little challenge for everyone. If you're in the Port Dalhousie area on Saturday, poke your head out by the water and see if you can hear Glendon do this call. We're doing a memorial service for the Hamilton and Scourge this coming Saturday.
Is there someplace online where we can hear some of these calls?
There used to be, and I spent most of this afternoon looking for waves or MP3s or what have you. The only ones I can find that are really of any value are American ones.
Okay.
And most of those are put out by the American Sea Scouts, who are somewhat different.
Ah.
And being Canadian, of course, the ones that I know come from the Royal Navy, and then our Navy, the Royal Canadian Navy. And they're the ones that most reenactors would expect to learn, because most people do RN, right? But if you go on YouTube, of course, the repository for everything, you put in boatswain's calls or bosun's whistles, and it's usually this geezer from the Sea Scouts that'll come up, and he's playing it, you know, the American way, sideways, and not so sharp. There's a lot of chiff. Like when you're playing a flute and you're just a little off, you get that, a lot of that. But if you want to learn the American stuff, it's easier than to find the Royal Navy stuff. So yeah, or you can just do a random search, as I did, and didn't find a thing.
All right, we got 3 minutes left. Are there any final questions?
I was going to say that I put in the chat a link to the United States Navy Bos'un website, which has a lot of the calls.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I mean, for those of you that do American, that's the place to go. They've got things that I've never heard of up here, like sweepers, which is, you know, guys, grab your brooms and mops and let's get clean on the deck. That's, okay, who's the bright guy?
That's me. It's piping ashore of a U.S. Officer in 2010.
Ah, well,
So
he made it ashore all right then, did he?
she did, yes.
Oh, she. See,
She,
there I go,
yeah.
making a sexist assumption. I should not do that.
Yes, I
But,
did the web search you suggested and came up with RN Call the Hands and Good Morning HMS Bulwark.
Yeah. You should click on the one that says Wakey Wakey.
Mhm.
Wakey Wakey is a peculiar, from what I understand, British and Canadian call that is exactly what it sounds like. And at 6 in the morning, it is the most annoying thing you could ever hear. It makes you get up. But,
All right,
yeah.
well, thanks everybody for attending. I hope you enjoyed your session here. And again, keep an eye out for the PDF of the materials that Glendon will circulate via our website. And if you want to review this again, we'll have it up on the YouTube page next week. For now, everybody stay safe and maintain a positive psyche.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.